everyone! Now that September is here, I wanted to share with you how I made this colorful, inky apple sketch using Faber-Castell Gelatos and Tim Holtz Distress Crayons. Distress crayons are a water-reactive pigment stick and they're opaque, but they're also really smooth and blendable and can be transparent when you add water. They come in pen form that twists up from the bottom and have a corresponding colored cap. In a similar vein, Faber-Castell Gelatos are also a creamy, opaque pigment stick that can be activated in water. They have a shorter, rounded design similar to lip balm, and they also twist up and come in a clear container. Today I'm using my Pith sketchbook. It is 200 GSM, so it can handle a little bit of water. I recently got these distress crayons for my birthday. I have a birthday art haul if you're interested in seeing that. I thought it'd be the perfect time to give them a test run, and I just store them in that empty tea tin. The gelatos were gifted to me from Faber-Castell over a year ago, but I never was sure how I wanted to use them, so they've just been like sitting in my drawer, which bothered me because I really wanted to play with them, but I just kind of didn't have the right subject for them until now. I was given the gift set 1, which includes the iridescent, like that green one you're looking at. But they also have pastels, metallics, basics, and then the brights, like this cherry red color. So there's a lot of different categories. Distress crayons also come in some different effects, like metallics, I believe, but I don't own any of those. Okay, to get started, I grabbed myself a jar of water and I'm just using some clips to hold the pages in place. The reference photo for the sketch will be listed in the description box below. I got it from Unsplash, which is a royalty-free image site. I'm just picking out a few colors that I want to use. I wanted to make sure to get a variety because I really want to test a lot of the different colors out. So now I'm just going in with a light colored pencil and roughly sketching out the branch and how I want it to go across the page. It's hard to see in this video. I should have used a darker color. And then I'm going in and just adding a few circles here and there for where I want to put my apples. I'm starting with the yellow gelato and I dip it in some water because I want the initial layers to be a little bit thinner. And I just go in and I'm looking at the reference image where the lighter colors are, but I'm not following the colors perfectly. But I'm just kind of going back and forth around the apple shape and deciding where I want the lighter spots to be. I then go in with a bright green color and go around. I'm slightly overlapping them, but I'm being a little careful just because I don't want them to get too muddy. As you'll see with this apple, it's my first test run on it and it does get a little muddy, but I go back later and I attempt to fix it, so it's okay. Then I just added some olive green to give it a little bit earthier tone. They blend really well together. Now I'm going in with the red, and as you can see, once I start to lay down the red, where the white pages, it's fine, but where I go to lay it over the green, because they're complementary colors and they're both wet, they quickly muddy and almost give it like a brown color. And yeah. Okay, I'm kind of doing something similar with the second apple, starting with the lighter colors, but I'm being more intentional and trying to overlap complementary colors as much. The greens and yellows, because they're so close in a color family, I don't mind them overlapping. Even the orange with the yellow, obviously, they can blend a little bit together. I'm trying to approach it similar to when I've used oil pastels. I'm not like super proficient in oil pastels, but they also muddy quickly. So I'm carefully just smudging out the red a little bit to fill in some gaps, but I'm being more careful about layering them on top of the wet green and yellow. I then went in with, I believe the shade is Guava, just to give it kind of a pinkier hue. It kind of reminded me of like Pink Lady apples a little bit, if you've ever seen those. And I'm just, I don't know, I'm kind of letting my intuition guide me and just go back and forth. Now I'm going in with a distress crayon in the color Ripe Persimmon because it's a warmer red, and I also want to layer these two materials and see how well they work in conjunction. I go back once that first apple is a little bit dry and try to cover up that other red with the Distress crayon, and it helps a little bit, but it's still pretty muddy. I thought it'd be fun to add some pink. I believe this color is Flamingo. I'll list all the sets that I bought, and you can have a look for yourself if you're interested in any of the colors. I thought it'd be fun to add a little pop of pink in there. I realized that my apple was looking a little too round, so I go back with the yellow gelato and try to make the top look a little bit fuller to give it more of an apple shape. This is not, specific. This is very loose, which is one of the cool things about these materials is you have to work relatively loose. I'm putting in a little leaf here. I'm trying to be intentional about how much color I'm adding because I know I want my apples to be colorful. I want to add a few leaves here and there, but I don't want to go crazy because I want there to be a lot of negative space in this piece because I know I want to go in later with some ink details. And I've noticed with my work personally, I really like when I have a lot of negative space when I'm working with ink. Something about the bold ink with a lot of white space. To me, I really like I like the way they work together. Now I'm going in with the pink gelato again. I think that's the guava one. And I'm just having fun. I'm just coloring in, going back and forth, and I'm using my reference image, but also I'm not. I'm kind of doing my own thing. It's just as a rough guide for the style of image that I wanted to use. I go back in again on that first apple, trying to salvage that spot that I muddied. I'm using a darker Distress crayon that I try to be careful with how much I'm using because it is a pretty strong color. I'm then going in with it's like a pale olive. I think it's Shabby Shutters, I think was the color. And just I'm going over some of those brighter green spots and trying to, make them a little earthier. I'm adding more pink back and forth. I like that I can take the edges of the gelato and get a somewhat thin shape. It's not precise by any means, but it's still doable. Here are some of my initial thoughts while first working with these materials. They both work very well together, which makes sense because they're both, a water activated pigment stick essentially. The Distress crayons are a little creamier than the gelatos, sort of like oil pastels. If you've ever used the Sennelier oil pastels, they're not that soft, but they're pretty soft, almost like a lipstick. Gelatos are still smooth as well, but they're not as smooth as the Distress crayons. But they're also not as hard as like Neocolor wax pastels. They lay down color really beautifully as well, but like if we're comparing like smoothness, they're a little bit harder. I really like having the two different sizes is another thing I wanted to note. I like that the gelatos are like a fat rounded shape, especially with a subject like this, apples or fruit or something. I'm trying to think about how I want to use them in a landscape, but I'm not totally sure yet. But I also like the thinner style of the Distress crayons. I could see myself using these in landscapes more. So they're both great for impressionistic loose style. I didn't find the iridescent or metallic gelatos to be very shimmery, which is fine with me. I didn't really want them to be shimmery, but if that's something you're interested in, maybe watch a few more videos on gelatos specifically. I feel like the Distress crayons, are they have more interesting colors. There's some more muted colors, more unique shades. The gelatos, while they do have a lot of different like effects like pastels and brights and iridescence, I don't find the colors to be as unique as the Distress crayons. And I'm noticing for layering, I've had the best success when I apply watered down layers first, let them dry, and then go over with the full opaque layers. Okay, so now that I've finished up all the coloring, I am gonna take one of my Pentel Pocket Pens. I'm gonna use the color sepia instead of black. It's still very dark, but it's just slightly softer than the black color. And I'm just going in and very lightly with the tip of the brush pen, tracing some leaf shapes. I don't like to use really strong, bold lines very much. I do them a little bit here and there, but I really like to slightly drag my pen along the page, and I like the skipping. That's just a personal stylistic choice. I'm adding some little spotting and just like some of the imperfections you see on apples to give it a more apple look. So when you look at it, you know what you're looking at. These pens work incredibly well over the Gelato and Distress crayons. I was actually pleasantly surprised at how well they just glided right over them, and there was no like, it didn't activate them or the Gelatos or the Distress crayons or anything like that. These Pentel Pocket Pens are so opaque and saturated with ink that they just worked beautifully. I've been using them a lot in my sketchbook recently. I kind of forgot about them for a while. I'm just adding some more details to these apples over here. I'm being very intentional with how much detail because I have noticed in the past I can go overboard with the ink very, very quickly, and then it just becomes too much. It's just too strong. It's a little overpowering, and I don't love the outcome of my sketches. I can always go back in later and add more detail, which I do, but to start, I'm just going around the page and being picking and choosing very purposefully. I wanted to give that leaf a little bit more shape, so I added some line work to that as well. And in the reference image, there was a lot of leaves, and I knew that I wanted most of those to be inked instead of colored because, like I said before, the apples were already so colorful and bright. I thought it'd be a little too much for what I was going for. So now I'm just filling in those branches. I decided once I'd filled in more leaves that I did want to do a few colorful like baby leaves here and there. I really love this blue color. I decided to add in to the apples and the leaves. I'm really enjoying like aqua blues right now and like bright greens like that, like the pastel greens. I had a lot of fun working with these Gelatos. And Distress crayons. In conjunction, they work beautifully, and I recommend them if you want to have like some loose sketches like this. If you want to practice loosening up, if you want more of that impressionistic style. I like them because they do give me a similar effect oil pastel when I use them this way, but they can be water activated, which I really like in a lot of my materials. I like the option to be thinned out. That's just a personal preference of mine. Just going in and adding a few more little details to the apples and to the branch. I had a lot of fun creating this. I really enjoyed the process and I learned quite a bit. So this is the final sketch. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the process of me creating this and trying out these materials. I found it to be really fun and playful. I always love testing out new supplies. If you use Gelatos or Distress crayons, please leave in the comment section your favorite way to use them. I know that they have a lot of different uses for a lot of different types of art. And if you like this video and my content, please consider subscribing. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye!